The enormous royal property scheme finally reaches its most extravagant comic stage when the Clampetts seriously consider the possibility of acquiring Canada. The sheer scale of the proposal is precisely what makes it so effective within the world of the story. The Clampetts have become accustomed to possessing extraordinary wealth, yet they remain guided by the same uncomplicated generosity that shaped their original desire to help the Queen. Jethro's willingness to discuss the idea with confidence adds another layer of delightful absurdity, because he approaches an international financial proposition with the same enthusiastic certainty he brings to everything else. The comedy depends on treating an impossible sounding transaction with complete seriousness while allowing the audience to appreciate the enormous gap between the family's assumptions and the reality surrounding them. The supposed representative of the Queen becomes increasingly important because the entire arrangement depends upon the Clampetts trusting the information placed before them. Their willingness to believe that a royal financial crisis can be solved through an enormous property transaction reflects their extraordinary combination of wealth and innocence. They are not motivated by greed, and they are not seeking social prestige for themselves. Their purpose remains charitable. That sincerity makes the deception more amusing because the audience can see that their good intentions are being directed through a situation they do not fully understand. Jed's calm acceptance and the family's instinctive generosity allow the scheme to continue far beyond what any conventional banker would consider reasonable. Mr. Drysdale's reaction provides the essential counterweight to the Clampetts' enthusiasm. He understands enough about money, international affairs, and financial responsibility to recognize that something about the situation is deeply questionable, yet his ability to control the family has always been limited. Raymond Bailey can turn Drysdale's professional concern into increasingly physical comedy by allowing his polished manner to fracture under pressure. The banker is caught between wanting to protect the fortune and needing to respect the family's wishes. His desperation is therefore both financial and personal. The more determined the Clampetts become to help the Queen, the more desperately Drysdale tries to prevent their generosity from producing an irreversible financial catastrophe. Miss Jane Hathaway remains the sensible observer caught between Drysdale's panic and the Clampetts' trusting enthusiasm. Her intelligence allows her to recognize how extraordinary the proposed transaction has become, while her familiarity with the family prevents her from simply dismissing their intentions as foolish. Nancy Culp's restrained comic style is especially valuable in such a situation because Jane does not need to dominate the scene to make the absurdity visible. A carefully controlled expression or weary reaction can suggest that she understands the problem long before the other characters do. Her professionalism becomes increasingly important as the supposed royal arrangement grows beyond anything that ordinary banking procedures could comfortably contain. The royal documents and real estate claims function as especially effective comic props because they give the extraordinary scheme an appearance of official legitimacy. To the Clampetts, papers associated with the royal representative naturally seem important, and the presence of formal documents makes the proposal easier for them to accept. The audience, however, understands that paperwork does not automatically make an absurd transaction legitimate. This distinction allows the series to create humor from the characters' relationship with authority. The Clampetts are impressed by the idea of helping royalty, but they do not approach official-looking documents with the professional skepticism that Drysdale would normally demand. Their trust becomes the mechanism through which the comedy continues to escalate. Jethro's involvement is particularly effective because his confidence can make the scale of the proposed transaction seem almost ordinary. His comic innocence has always allowed sophisticated subjects such as finance to become strangely simple in his mind. Here, the idea of acquiring an enormous territory becomes another opportunity for him to offer advice and participate in a discussion that is obviously far beyond his experience. Max Baer Jr. performance works because Jethro is rarely aware of the contradiction between his confidence and his knowledge. He approaches complicated matters with an almost heroic certainty, and that certainty makes his contributions funnier than any deliberate attempt at cleverness could. The idea of buying Canada also completes the script's larger satire of wealth and misplaced confidence. The Clampetts possess so much money that conventional financial limitations no longer prevent them from imagining transactions of astonishing magnitude. Yet their enormous purchasing power does not automatically provide them with sophisticated judgment. The series repeatedly reverses the expected relationship between wealth and wisdom. The people who appear socially and professionally sophisticated often become overwhelmed by the Clampetts' behavior, while the family members themselves remain calm because they do not recognize how extraordinary their circumstances have become. Their innocence is therefore both the source of the problem and the quality that keeps the story affectionate. Jed remains the emotional center even as the financial scheme becomes increasingly outrageous. His generosity is never presented as foolishness for its own sake. He genuinely wants to help people he believes are in trouble, and his willingness to use his fortune for that purpose reflects the family's simple moral framework. Buddy Ebsen's understated performance makes Jed especially effective because he can respond to extraordinary claims without becoming frantic. His calm presence allows the audience to appreciate the absurdity around him while preserving the family's dignity. The Clampetts may misunderstand international finance, but their instinct to help others is sincere, and that sincerity gives the comedy its wholesome foundation. The supposed purchase of Canada ultimately becomes a wonderfully exaggerated expression of the series' comic philosophy. Banking, international diplomacy, royal prestige, real estate, and immense wealth are all treated as if they can be understood through the same plain-spoken logic that governs everyday family life. The result is absurd, but it is never cruel. The Clampetts are not foolish because they lack intelligence. They are simply operating within a moral and cultural framework very different from the institutions surrounding them. Drysdale's frantic concern, Jane's controlled frustration, Jethro's confident participation, and Jed's generosity combine into an ensemble rhythm that turns an extraordinary financial misunderstanding into a celebration of the family's uniquely innocent way of confronting modern life. The final movement of the story leaves the Clampetts' triumph rooted not in financial cleverness but in their resilience, generosity, and unwavering family loyalty. The royal property scheme has pushed their enormous fortune into an international situation that would overwhelm almost anyone else, yet the family continues to face the confusion with the same good-natured confidence that has carried them through every previous complication. Drysdale's exhaustion becomes the comic counterpart to their calm, while Jane's professionalism and Jethro's confidence complete the ensemble. What ultimately makes the material memorable is the affectionate reversal at its heart. The supposedly unsophisticated Clampetts repeatedly survive worlds of banking, medicine, advertising, business, and diplomacy because they remain sincere, loyal, generous, and wonderfully themselves.